Welcome to the record making workshop with Gethin Pearson. Gethin Pearson is a producer, mixer and songwriter with his own studio space in West Wales. He has just finished production on the hotly anticipated forthcoming second album from When Young, having already produced and mixed their single The Prayer during lockdown in 2020. Gethin has previously worked with well-known artists including Kelly Okereke on the Block Party frontman's respected solo album 2042 and music for his play Leave to Remain, and Badly Drawn Boy on the Mercury Prize winner's 2020 album Banana Skin Shoes, of which Gethin also co-wrote the title track. All the Gartland's Why Am I Like This, which Gethin produced and mixed, has over 8 million streams on Spotify. Gethin's impressive discography includes Jaws, Crystal Fighters, To Kill a King, Alma featuring French Montana and Charlie XCX. Recently awarded the Hitmaker Fund by PRS Foundation in recognition that he is at a tipping point to major success as a songwriter. His successful writing collaborations include Hotly Tipped Walt Disco, having co-written their recent singles Cut Your Hair and Hey Boy, You're One of Us, which is Tenement TV's Song of the Year in 2020. Endlessly creative and known for his boundless enthusiasm and passion for helping artists to find their sound, he's currently working with new artists including Adwaith, Be Good, Suns Up and Polo. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today, Gethin.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess we'll just start the session with a brief introduction of you. Obviously, that's your biography there, but it'd be nice to hear from you. How is it you got into doing production? What is it that got you here today?
So I've always been into music growing up, and I used to play in bands. Like as a teenager, I played in bands, kind of like shouty, punk, hardcore, loud music, and really energetic music. And so played a lot of like gigs, the meeting bands around that time, and and would go into studios. Like we'd save up our money, go get a day in the studio, for example, and you have this romantic idea of what studios are like, or the experience of recording, be it from like watching too many like documentaries or reading about bands in the studio and kind of the process. I was always kind of let down by those. You kind of go in, have your day and just record as much as possible, but it didn't seem like there was any production or improvement from the people who you were working with, maybe. So that was growing up, and maybe I think that kind of that planted some seeds, maybe, of if I'm involved, you involved in music, you want to be, and in studios, you want to, help improve things and kind of add ideas or help someone refine ideas. So maybe that was like a seed planted of that when I was growing up. Then when I went to university, then I kind of finished playing in the band, and I took an acoustic guitar with me, and I had like a little 4-track off my dad where I could record ideas. And then I started playing with a program called Reason, where I could program little beats as well, and started, exploring that, like creating sounds type of thing, having how different sounds you could meld together, like acoustic instruments with electronic instruments, or, just playing with sound then, really, and writing songs. So I did that through uni. And when I finished uni, then I kind of started playing gigs as a solo artist, and also I got linked up with a local studio and started kind of doing library music with them, where you would go in, write a song, record a song in a day, and then I kind of got the discipline of getting stuff finished from them, and also the idea of almost like producing for a purpose, like making music. There was like a brief, and you were kind of tried to create something that was to that. So I did that, and then from that library record, you had a fee then to make the songs. I bought an M box, which is like one of the early Pro Tools mobile interfaces, and a laptop, which was the PowerBook back then. So I had a PowerBook and that, and then all of a sudden I was like, I've got a studio type of thing. It was like, I can record in my bedroom. Great, I've got a studio. Let's go type of thing. And so I was recording little demos for myself, like singer-songwritery type of things. And a few other people asked me then if I could do that. So we would just, be in my bedroom, closet, duvets, not dissimilar to where I am now,
Yeah.
and yeah, just recording ideas, and then that grew, and got a place with a little basement then where I set up initially again to record my own music, but slowly other people would be coming over, like bands would come over. I would be recording like live sessions for BBC Radio Wales, and it just kind of snowballed then from there, because I was working at the same time. I had a job. I was a primary school teacher part time, so I'd spend half the week in school and then half the week making music, and then slowly but surely it kind of it took a long time, but it slowly took over as that being my main job, really.
At what point did you have to make that jump between, obviously the primary school, working as a primary school teacher was in many ways a safety net for you, I mean, that backup job, really.
Yes.
At what point did you make that jump between, okay, I'm gonna have to leave this behind?
You know what? It's kind of it was more. I'm very grateful for the people I worked with, actually, and the school I was at the time. They were so supportive, because at the time I did a record for a band, and they asked if I would go on tour with them to play session, because I was doing a lot of the keyboards in the studio and the programming and the synth stuff. They said, "Oh, it'd be great if you could come live and do some of this live." So I had to go. Bearing in mind, as a teacher, you're meant to be there. It's not like, "Oh, I'm taking a holiday, bye," sort of thing. I said the situation, and they were so supportive. They were like, "Oh, well, it'd be good for someone to go and do this, so they can relate the experience to, and show that there's show that you've kind of got outside interests. You're not just, this one-dimensional character type of thing. Like you can bring that experience into the classroom almost." So they let me go. I had a sabbatical for a little period to go and do that, and then my boss said it was increasing. The amount of times I was asking to be away was getting out of hand, really. Like I was taking like a month here or a month there to go and make records for people. And he said, "Oh, look," he pulled me aside and said, "You need to make a decision about what you're going to do, really. So there's a full-time job here, which I would like you to have, but if you're working here, you're full-time, or you go and pursue this, your dream." He said, "I'll give you 1 year sabbatical where you can you can explore, push your music as far as as much as you can. If you're ever quiet, then give me a call. I'll give you supply teaching. And then at the end of that year, you've been doing more teaching than you have music, then maybe that's your decision made for you." But yeah, so that year, then I only went in for like a cup of tea once. I was that busy in that year. And so I think so I'm super great, obviously very grateful for that push, because I don't think I would have, it would have been a hard decision to make, but it was almost, I had an ultimatum put to me almost type of thing. Yeah. So
do you think with that ultimatum given to you, do you think that really helped you find new work as well? The fact that you didn't have a safety net, or do you think that it was just happening anyway?
Yeah, it kind of focused you, because you were like, right, it's kind of, I was always trying to find as much as I could anyway, or work on as much as I could before, but it was more of a, right, this is it, this is what you do now type of thing. And within that year, so many things came up that I maybe wouldn't have been able to do, or opportunity creates opportunity, I guess. And it's kind of, the people I met and worked with that year, what that's led to as well, that I would maybe wouldn't have, because it's an important lesson, is that I always say, and to the people listening to this as well, it's kind of, no matter whatever you're working on, to give everything to that. You don't know who's going to hear it. You don't know who is going to come. Oh, who worked on that? Or how does that sound like that? Or I've worked with bands where they've all, with that band, it's like you try and give the best you can in the studio with them. And then even if that doesn't work out for those guys, then they'll remember the time they had to be in the studio, and hopefully you'll get a call back. And then you got 2 or 3 bands out of that one band that are calling you then almost. So it's kind of, I think a lot in that year was trying to, spend every day just working on something, really, and being able to take opportunities that before I almost, because I was half in the studio, I had to almost be like, oh, I had to make choices about what I wanted to work on, really, in terms of, and a lot of the time that had been driven by budget, maybe, because I was like, oh, well, I need to, whereas when I had the more time, it was almost, I could explore things that, weren't about, oh, I need this thing. It was like, oh no, I want to do this to create. It's something I really believe in, which maybe I wouldn't have been able to take the time to have done before, So I think a lot of before I get in a session with someone, say I'm producing like a record with someone, or we're producing a track, it's about like, there's like pre-production before it. And in a sense, like pre-production is, first of all, chatting through their ideas, what they're trying to create. So you're on the right, they could be saying, oh, we want to make a record that sounds super dark, super, lots of space to it, not too many overdubs, not too many parts, just, so to get a sense of what we're doing, what they want, what their ambition is from it, before you even get near a studio. Because, you might, in a way, you might be like, oh, the next thing I want to work on, I want to be super up, super bright. And then are you the right person, kind of having that chat first about, all right, am I the right person for this at the moment? Is this something I can give everything to at the moment as well? So that would, what I'd say is like one of the first things. Then from there, it's like sharing some ideas. So they, the person might have a few demos, or from it, or a few voice notes of the song ideas. So that's, again, that'll feed into the pre-production. Then talking about the actual songs, talking about, all right, okay, I feel like the chorus on this one isn't ready yet. Why don't you try some bits out? Or it's kind of like, oh, I can't hear. There's no chorus yet. Or I really like what you've done with the first verse lyrically, but what's going to happen in the second verse? Or I don't think the second verse lyrics are up to scratch with that. You've done the work in the first verse is so great. I think we need to get the second verse up. So kind of just chatting through ideas and kind of gauging out how they take like constructive criticism, like learn how to phrase things that you don't, because some people you can be quite blunt with, like, no, it's just not good enough, and they're fine. But if some people you can say that to, and it can completely ruin any confidence they've got in what they're doing. So all of that before you get in the studio, trying to just get a gauge of the person you're going to be working with. Both creatively but also personally. So I would say that's a super important thing to do.
Yeah, it's interesting that you sort of delve on the personality aspect of it. I think normally with this sort of area, you assume it's just a case of the artist being rehearsed and prepared, and else, and you being like ready with the sessions. But in reality, there's quite a lot of personality that goes into these things, and it's not just, you're not really just working alongside somebody for a couple of weeks. You're essentially steering that product of theirs, that process of theirs, and it might be the most important thing that they'll ever do. So understanding their personal connections to it is, that's quite key, really.
It's definitely it's kind of like not just seeing it as in, it's hard because it's like a balance of being able to be that close to it with them, but also to always keep that outside perspective, because that's your job, is to like have the objective view on it, really, to not get so, to not be, to kind of, and it's balance in that. Differences in opinion is an interesting one, because obviously sometimes it can be a difference of opinion that I have to like an artist, or a solo artist, or in the back, that way there could be a difference of opinion. And it's ultimately, it's kind of when it's a difference, so I can deal with it in a few different ways. Like, first of all, difference of opinion, of my opinion with the artist, and then we can deal with when there's differences of opinion within a group, maybe. So like, first of all, when there's a difference of opinion between me and an artist, ultimately me trying to remember it's like, oh, I'm here for them, I'm here to help them. Even there could be something that you really feel like, no, this just you know, because there's no right and wrong type of thing. It's such a, you know, there's no right and wrong of it. It's subjective, isn't it, to that person's to opinions, and even they can change day by day as well. So it's kind of staying open to remembering who you're there working for, who you're there to try and help push their vision type of thing, push their creativity, and help them get to where they want to go to. And sometimes there's where they want to go, and how they get there. There's quicker routes to get there, you know. And you're like, oh, let's just do this and it's done. But they need to. It's on a case by case basis. But you need to make sure, you know, you're giving them the space to eventually get there, not shutting things down. You know, you already know, but like, oh, this isn't the right part for it. But on the route to them playing that, they might find something completely different that you know that you would have never have got to. And of course, it's kind of like, you know, there's always, you might always have an idea for a section or a part. You might always have something, but also not always. You don't have to voice that first, because, you know, and ultimately, if you're in the studio, you know, if you're producing or you're writing, you're there because you're a creative person with ideas. But it's like knowing when to put those in, type of thing. And another, you know, it's kind of then leading on to the other one. The other thing, like when there's like maybe tension or adversity within a group, it's kind of, I think it's super important to make sure that everyone feels heard. Everyone feels like they can voice an opinion, and give listen, like, let's give it a go. Let's listen to it. You know, it might even the concept of it, how you're describing it, might be, you know, sound like completely not what we want to do, not what we need to do. But if somebody's had that idea, then let's at least listen to it to then judge it, or not even you know, let's listen to it to then have a discussion about, is this the best thing for this song right now? Is this what we need? Is this what we're looking for? So I think as long as, you know, you expect to have disagreements and tensions within things, because of the nature of the environment that it is. It's a lot of, you know, creative people who, you know, creative people with strong feelings about things, and all melding together to create something. So you know, it's kind of, sometimes I'm like, if there isn't a little bit of tension, then what's wrong? Like, is anyone actually invested in this? You know,
you know, you want people to be. I think you expect a heightened state of emotion, don't you?
Yes.
If people seem kind of nonchalant, then maybe it's not going that well. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Or, you know, or they're just, you know, it's kind of like, it's knowing, and then you kind of get a sense of what type of artist they are, then how much it, you know, means to them in that way, you know. So it's kind of like, some people are like, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. Then it's like, oh, how invested are they in what they do as a musician or an artist, you know? Yeah. So yeah, I would say, in terms of, I think, like, to sum it up, dealing is like giving people space to share their ideas and create. Listening, you know, this one you might instinctively think is going to be wrong, but listen to it. Give yourself, of course, it's kind of like if you've got 2 days to create a song and they're like, oh, you know what, it'd be great to have, you know, a 4-minute horn arrangement in this. Then you've got a discussion of like, have we really got the time or the budget to give this whim a go, type of thing. There's maybe ways you can mock something up and be like, oh, let's listen if it's the right tone, you know, to then decide whether you're going to invest that time and ultimately part of the budget into it. But, you know, most things you can at least give a sense of listening to that idea. So yeah, space and time and kind of consideration to the people you might be in a group with, and the music.
Okay. And is there any, without naming names, obviously, is there any examples you can think of where you've had maybe a difficult situation, difficult for any reason, whether it's, you know, or anything, and you've managed to overcome that and actually produce something that was good on the other side?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's kind of, again, not being afraid to kind of to talk, to say, you know, because ultimately your role as the producer is you're there to like keep the session on track, keep steering the ship. So knowing that, oh look, I can see if, you know, for example, if this, you know, this group dynamic carries on, then it's not going to be healthy in it down the line, type of thing. You know, it's not going to be, you know, I can see already that everyone's well intentioned, but ideas might be getting shut down before they're even listened, you know, before sentences are even finished, or kind of things like that. And so just kind of, all right, guys, let's have a little, you know, it's kind of, I know everyone's got strong opinions about this, but you know, this is a collective. Let's listen to what other people have got to say, and let's give that idea a chance. So, you know, that happens. It always happens. You know, it happens all the time. You've got, you know, it's like different personalities within the group on different days, type of thing, depending on who wrote that song, who started that one, or who's is their favorite one of the record, type of thing. So yeah, you get that all the time. And then similarly with like this, you know, solo artists, so you know, worked with on in that way as well, not where the tension is more within them, about you know, kind of how they hear what they sound like, what their music is, type of thing, what their perspective of themselves is, you know, so trying to break down those tensions and those hang-ups. A vocal production, when you're working on that, a lot of the time that the track would have been made, the music would have been made, you know, the song's written, and you're there to get the best performance of the artist singing the track. You know, and a lot of the time, no matter what the production is, if the vocal doesn't sound great, if the emotion isn't there and the performance isn't there, it doesn't matter how great the musical production is. That's all the musical production is there to support that vocal, you know. So in terms of vocal production, it's kind of making that person feel, one, as comfortable as possible to perform, like, because again, there's different artists. Some people will, you know, happily perform all day, whereas others need to be in the right mindset, need things, you know, you cater for them, type of thing. Because, you know, I worked on a record recently where the vocalist said, she's like, oh, I feel like I sing best and I'm more relaxed when I'm sat down. I was like, okay. I was like, oh, so do you normally sit down? She's like, oh no, normally I'm always made to stand. And it was kind of like, well, surely you've told me that you know, I was like, well, that sounds like, that sounds common sense, that if you feel like you can give the best vocals sitting down, let's sit you down. And we created like a little seating area with like pillows and like lights and like duvets, and, you know, and the vocals sat down, and it's kind of like, yeah, like she's like, oh, I've never sounded like this before. And it's like, well, we dealt with the fact to make you feel comfortable first for it, you know? So, and so that is a big part of it. And then obviously there's the technical aspects of it. Kind of, I'll do a lot of tracking, a lot of kind of getting them in, just in the zone of it, not just like, oh, 3 takes, so you're done. You know, it's kind of trying to, a lot of tracking, giving them, you know, ideas within it, or discussing this, like, oh, I love how you phrase this bit, what do you think? And then showing them, giving them examples of where they sound great, where they've just performed something great, to keep them, you know. That was with a different artist, it was kind of, to get them going vocally was really tough. But as soon as I got them in and I got a few takes of something, it was like making sure I showed them. I was like, oh, listen to how great you sound on this phrase here, that. And then they started believing in themselves more with it. So yeah, so there's like, again, the kind of philosophical approach maybe, and then there's obviously like the technical aspects, making sure you've got, you know, it's a good mic choice for that vocalist and that song, you know, making sure that the sound is right with that, making sure that you're not, you know, going crazy, you know, too far with it depends, like if I'm producing it and I'm mixing it myself, then I'll like maybe go further with the processing on the way in, because I know what I want it to be and how I'm going to mix it. Whereas if I'm not mixing a record and it's going to go to someone else, I'll maybe keep it I'll not safe, but I won't go as far with that sound, because I know, you know, not to paint them too much into a corner with it.
Yeah. Okay. And with vocal production, then, do you think that it could be a career option as it in itself, or is it just part and parcel of being just a general record producer?
you know what, there's people out there who just do vocals, like who are just known for being great vocal producers. You know, great. You know, they start off as like, you know, they're kind of like great engineers, like vocal engineers, and then they'll get called up to produce the vocals type of thing for people. So it's definitely you know, if that's something that people feel like they would like to do, then it's kind of, first of all, just try and record as much people singing as possible, and how you can make it right you know, how you can make it sound that person's sound amazing, how you can get them to sound like they've never, you know, sound the best they've ever sounded, but get the character out of the voice that makes their voice great. So at the moment, I don't know if you can see from where I'm at, I'm in the middle of, we've just moved to West Wales and we're building a new studio here. So at the moment, I was working in the basement, but it flooded. So I'm in a spare room in the house. So at the moment, the biggest piece of equipment, the most important piece of equipment is a pair of headphones, a really good pair of headphones. So I'm using a pair of Audi's headphones at the moment, which they've changed. They're incredible. They're incredible. So I can be on a laptop in the room next door listening on them, and it's, yeah. I'm enjoying them more now with my speakers. So yeah, but that's, you know, obviously I'm not in a proper room. That's why you can see duvets up, and I've got a few bits of treatment up. So most, you know, first of all, it's about the environment you're listening in. So, you know, you can have the most expensive speakers in the world, but if the room doesn't sound great, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
so yeah, so first bit I would say is the room, the space you're listening in, type of thing. Then on every mix, obviously, yeah, so the headphones are super important. And then I've got like toys that they're not like essentials, but they make like I get excited and creative and inspired when I'm using them on a mix. So like I've just got these new EQs to the mix bus called the Bax 2020 from Pope Audio, and I've been super excited with those this week, and over the last 2 weeks, and everything I've been mixing through those. Like I've just had some masters back mixes, and they were like, we didn't really need to do anything. So I was like, oh, brilliant type of thing. So they were a worthwhile investment. So I love those, and then count as two because there's two of them. And then and then just like I got like lots of little guitar pedals and toys. So to sum that one up, instead of lots of different, I'll say I got a reamp box. So there's like a reamp box that turns an XLR signal into a line signal, and then so you can reamp anything like a vocal through a guitar pedal or something like that. So so that's very fun to get creative. Like so you can use pedals like plugins then essentially. So that's really exciting. And then I enjoy using most of my vocals will go through. I've got something called Harrison EQ. And then that'll go through a compressor, like a distressor or 1176. So yeah, there's three there. So they're the things that at the moment are used on everything, no matter what the genre or what it is. I know what I can get out. I know what I get out of them.
Yeah, and I guess by using those sort of pieces of equipment so often, you become familiar with how they sound, and out of that collection of equipment that you've got, I guess might eventually form part of your like sonic signature in a way. If you use collection of equipment on every record, all of your records have this slight connection in that they have been produced in a similar way by the same person. That's it.
Yeah. And it's kind of, you just get more. It's better to have like a small number of things and fully push them to capacity, than have lots of things you just turn on every now and then. And it's like I'm trying to. Even with this new room now, I'm trying to refine, right, these are the things that I use all the time. And I love using and add value to things. How long is a piece of string situation, really? Sometimes you can be like chipping away at something for ages, and sometimes it just appears in front of you. like most of the time when I'm doing like a writing session with someone, you've only got a day with them. You know, you've got a set amount of time with them when you've been scheduled in to write with someone. Or at the moment, I'm doing it all over like the internet. You know, it's not, you're not in the same room writing. So we'll have like a day, and then in that day you'll, you know, a lot of the time you haven't even met this person before, you've never worked with them. So you know, it's kind of like this, a little bit of chatting, trying to get to know them a little bit, find out what they want to write about, where they're at, what the topics they maybe haven't covered yet, what do they find themselves always writing about, what do they, you know, are there things they want to say that they haven't said before, type of thing. So, you know, you'll spend a good time doing that. It's like, I guess if you met up with someone before working with them actually in the studio, you'd have a coffee, have a chat, kind of gauge, just get a feeling of where they're at, really. So we'll do that for a bit, then we'll, you know, from that, a lot of the time from that chat, a few lyric ideas might come up, just because of how they've spoken and what they've spoken about, or a theme might come up about what, you know, something they might want to write about. But then from there you're kind of straight into it. Like you might pick up, like start playing with a chord structure with them, start playing with a melody, or like I said, refine a lyric that you will then try and put to music. But most of the time, you know, it can take anything from like half an hour. You're like, well, flip, that's written, that's great, let's do another one. Or it could be a case of like you've been chipping away at it for a while and it's like, oh, something just still doesn't feel right. I think it's not about how long does a song take to write a song. It's like, when do you know to stop? Do you know what I mean? Or when do you know to stop? Either that it's done, it's great, you don't need to edit this anymore, you don't need to think of a different word for love, or you don't need to, you know, or knowing, right, I think if we put any more energy into this today, we're going to start to hate it as well. Let's pause this. Like, so it's about knowing when to stop, I think is maybe how I would phrase that instead. Wow, that's still trying to, I think. You know, I think you're never, I see. That's a very interesting. That's quite because I think, you know, being open and honest about it in the way you sometimes look at yourself, you may not even see yourself as having that. You're always looking at ways like how you can, because perception in this is such an important thing, whether that be the perception of being busy, perception of, you know, a great credit list, or perception of what you can do. So that's a very interesting question, because, like, for example, only earlier today, like I had a call with my management talking about this very thing. Really, it's like, oh, what can we do at the moment while you're not working with an artist every day, although you're working, how to kind of use the different platforms we've got to still show people what you can do, type of thing. So I think that, you know, and that was, so in terms of, you know, we're always still working on that, always still working on, you know, maybe not like using the term a credible image, but more of a kind of how you can always show that you're relevant, and that you've got things that you can bring to a project, maybe, you know, so it's always like demonstrating your skill set, and I think a lot of that is identifying what your skill set is, what you think, right, there's a great saying, it's like, be great at one thing, like it's enough, type of thing, you know, and it's kind of identifying, you know what, it's like, you know, this is what I'm great at in a room, not in an ego way, but in a kind of, oh no, I think this is where I can, you know, I can bring something to a project, you know, and that's kind of, that's such an important thing. Last one, and that's not the reason it was their last one, but I worked on the last one. Yeah, it was called It's Automatic. So, but they were the band who I was talking about earlier, that I ended up going on tour with. So for like that record, that was like the first act I'd worked on that like had a reputation and a name, and a, you know, had like international success almost. They were the first. Yeah, so I worked on that. I think it was like that was the I was still teaching at that time as well. So it was quite a, you know, yeah, and back in 2014, I think. And yeah, that's the album I worked on. It doesn't really follow a formula as such, but most of the time, as I mentioned with the how long does a song take to write, I'll usually start with lyrics with people. Usually start with a sense of what they're trying to say. So we'll kind of talk about lyric ideas, and we'll talk about that, and then I think that then formulates the chord structure and melody. So we try and deal with that first, because that's the song. Once you know the chords, the melody, and the lyric, that's the song. And then everything you're adding then is production. So I'll try and a lot of it, you know, when I'm writing with someone, we'll try and deal with that first. So we've got a basic demo of the song to show before we then decide how the beat should be or what sonic world it should go in. So I think some of the best places I've worked at haven't even ended up being like studios. They've just been where we've taken some equipment and it's been about the people that have been around you type of thing. It's like it's hard to separate the studio from like the atmosphere that was on the session or the people you were working with. Because you can be in like the nicest room ever, but if there's something up like with the vibe, or it's not feeling very welcome in there, or you know there's other issues going on, then that can taint that experience, if you know what I mean. And whereas other places I've gone to where we've literally just had like Airbnbs or apartments or flats or just like rooms where we've taken some equipment, and because what we've been doing is the energy's been great, like the people you're working with, it's all feeling positive, and yeah. So I don't think it's kind of more about the people that are in the studio than the studio itself. Like saying that, I've been, you know, super lucky to work in amazing places with amazing people. There's a place close to where I am now called Studios. That's incredible. So like we've been there, and you know, it's like not just the equipment, but this the atmosphere, the feeling there. How, you know, that's almost like when you go to a studio, it's standard what you get equipment wise most of the time in terms of you expect a certain number of things, but it's about the room and the atmosphere, how you feel when you're there. You know, not to get too like kind of, you know, cosmic, but it's about the energies of the places. You know, there's like another amazing one in Stockport called Eve, which again it's like full of like lots of different toys, loads of like cool old synths and old outboard equipment. And again, it just feels like it's just a nice atmosphere there, you know. So I could, you know, I've got a long list of places I've worked and very incredible, but I think it's more about, yeah, how I would answer that is, you know, I've been in the same studio with different artists, and the studio has felt different just because of the type of people that were in there with me working, you know. Vary a lot, can vary each time. Again, it depends. Sometimes it could depend on if you've written with them before, or you know where you are along in a project. Like sometimes, like if you've already got a creative relationship with someone, you've done a session, you've done a few tracks, I'll maybe get a voice note of like, oh, I had this idea last night, what do you think? You know, because you've built up that trust with them that they can show you something that is nowhere near finished. It could just be like da 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 da, like over some chords or something. I was like, oh, I've got this idea, I've got a kind of lyric, what do you think? So and then you get a back and forth, and you try it, and then you might develop it, or you might go from there. Yeah, or sometimes they would have done a basic, even just written something to like a basic loop or a part, and yeah, so there's no like kind of set way of how it started. As I said, you know, I mentioned a lot of the time if we're starting something completely from scratch together, a lot of the time we'll start with like a lyric idea maybe, but like at the moment I'm started working with someone, and they've done, you know, some garage band projects, little ideas they're not fully formed, but they've just sent those over and saying, oh, and then from there I'll try and do some bits and send them back. So yeah, it's kind of whatever works really, to whatever that situation needs. Probably was one that isn't released, or kind of just still on a hard drive that hasn't been finished yet. Which song that I've written is my favorite? I've got different things. Like, again, favorite is a tough word, because there's songs that remind you of the time you were working on it with the person, and you've got fond memories of that, or like getting through the process of it, you know, getting from where they were to where they wanted to be with a track or an idea. And, you know, I've worked with people who kind of, you know, they're incredible, they're amazing, but they've got just no faith in their ideas. So, you know, some of those are my favorite, because it's like, oh, we got it out, we've finished, and now they're so proud of it, and it's been released, and, you know, so there's instances of that. And then there's instances of like, even like, you know, oh, I'm so happy we wrote that lyric, you know, we got that lyric, or we tried that chord structure that I would have never have gone for before. So it's kind of, there's all, in most of them, there's something why I was happy that it was finished. Depends what day you ask me on. Sometimes I don't feel I've even got a cup.
Yeah.
No, I think you've got to really try and keep seeing it as full, half full. You've got to keep seeing it as that, to get, you know, because there's, you know, so many things will like knock you on the way, or things won't go as you planned, or, you know, things weren't seen through as you thought they would be, maybe. So you've really got to try and keep, you know, focused on what you're doing, why you're doing it. And yeah, so in that regard, you've got to try and see it. And there's days where, you know, you're looking to see if there's a drop in the cup at all, type of thing. But yeah, you know, it's kind of definitely a day by day thing. But overall, it's at least keep trying to see it as half full. That's more of a thing when you're like an artist. You'd be signed with a label to then to have your music released by them. I just recently came out of a publishing deal which was with a label, but yeah, I'm not affiliated with a label in particular. Like, I'll get hired by different labels to work with their artists. That's an interesting question, because I've never seen it as something different. I've just seen it as, you know, they've got they've got what their sound is and where they want to go with it, and what you can bring to push in that. So it's more of a case of there's no, you know, I work like across so many different genres and soundscapes that I never really look at it as, oh, right, I need to get my electronic head on today, or I need to get this head on today. It's more about, I need to, you know, what their personality is, and how you can get them feeling the best they can about their music. So I would say it's more based on a person-to-person thing than a genre thing. And a similar response really to that previous question is about, you know, I haven't really got a favorite people I work with. It's more about what, you know, they need different things at different times. You know, you get, yeah, there's different reasons you're working together for, and different times. So you know, obviously you have favorite days when you're working, like, oh, when you've achieved something, but I wouldn't say that there's like, oh, I've got like favorite artists, I guess. when I find out the answer, I'll let you know. if it was a, you know, it's such it's almost like a lottery type of thing, you know. It's kind of, it is in that regard. I think the first thing you can do is, and like, in all seriousness, have to try and take this advice myself a lot of the time, because you can get too caught up on what it's gonna do afterwards, rather than when you're working on it. You know, it's kind of, you know, somebody said something to me the other day, when it was kind of art was created from like a passion and a sense to create, rather than like for an ambition type of thing. You know, you don't sit down and think, right, you know, I think you're already on the wrong track when you're sitting down. It's like, right, we're going to write a big single today, or we're going to write a smash today. It's like, you know, you're already putting all that pressure on it. And also there's no, if you do A, B, and C, then equals a billion streams type of thing. It's kind of, that's, yeah. But there's things you can do to help yourself with it. You know, first of all, it's got, you know, make something that you're super proud of first, and, you know, make sure the creative part of it's right first, because, you know, people can see through something that isn't, or you can hear through something that isn't genuine. So making sure that you know what you've created, look at it as a piece of art first before it's a product type of thing. So look at it as getting, you know, fulfilling that artistic vision with it first, and then once that's done, it's kind of, if you want to then go on and do other things with it, then of course that can be done, whether it's, you know, if you're signed, then obviously if you're signed to a label, then there'll be teams around it already. But if you're an independent artist, looking at seeing who can help you promote it, whether it be to get radio plays or to get on playlists, or, you know, making sure that there's a good visual that matches that artistic vision with it. So if people see like the artwork before they, you know, that intrigues them there as well to go with it. And, you know, there's quick ways that for people try and do that as well, in terms of, you know, buying onto playlists, or, you know, trying to get, or like press and stuff. But ultimately they're very short-term fixes, I think, as well.